Okay, my name's Zakashi, guys, and in this video here we're going to be squeezing out another tier list. I wasn't going to do a tier list, but people have been asking me to do a tier list, and because Corrupted Zamasu got his Zenkai, very surprising Zenkai, it looks like Future's going to be the next thing up, we might as well hit another tier list. It's not going to take a lot of explaining, we're really just going to slot him in while actually changing up some of the orders based on how time has gone past because of the new LF units, Gogeta and Vegito. Right, so this segment of the video, I've never done this before, but this segment of the video is here for the people that don't understand what the tier list is about. So this is a meta tier list. A meta tier list entails strategy. It's all about strategy. It's not just about what units are good, because if you single people out, some units will immediately lose value because they're not the #1 hitters on the team. There's a lot of things that go into making a team good. There's a lot of things that goes into making a unit good. Sometimes it's the offensive capabilities, the defensive capabilities, the supportive capabilities, and then sometimes they just have one broken mechanics that puts them above the rest. And you need to consider all of these. And I didn't even mention the elemental factors of what teams would be built around. In a lot of cases right now, blue is very valuable, but then you could say green is very valuable if you have one good one, and you know who I'm talking about. So consider a lot of things when you build a team. It's not just who you use as well, rather who's very, very good around a lot of many other good units. Before I get into the tier list, we got a shout out Dingy. Dingy's YouTube channel, Twitter page, go follow him on both because he's the guy that makes the tier list. If you want to make your own tier list, if you want to do your own tier list, go ahead and follow him on Twitter right here, DNGEE_YT. The link is right there. Tier list template. Give him a follow and of course have fun doing that. Alright, so cool. We got the first 2 units on the tier list. We're making some moves due to how time have changed. So I think these 2 and one more other person, which I'll get into in a second, are the biggest debate about who's going to be the best in the game, who's going to be top 3, da-di-da-di-da. Now, between these 2, I think Gohan has the better kit. He's a bigger threat on the PvP battlefield. His explosive greens, the counter with the blue card, his counter with when you strike arts him and whatnot. I think in general, he's a bigger problem when you're fighting in PvP, but the guaranteed rush here is so free, and the consistent cover no is obviously insane. So in this case, are we taking a busted mechanic, which you can probably get 2 of because of the way he gets Dragon Balls, or are we taking this? Now, if it was individual, this is a meta tier list, I would obviously have Gohan above him. It shouldn't even be a debate. I think people would agree clearly. But the next thing I go to is the teams that they're on. Now, Gohan has 2 teams. He's on Son Family and he's on Hybrid Saiyans. And Hybrid Saiyans is obviously the worst of the 2. And meta-wise, Hybrid Saiyans is just worse, like one of the worser teams. It's not a bad team by any means. It's actually a good team. It's just that other teams are better. So then we look at Vegito's teams. He actually has 4, if I'm not mistaken. He's on Son Family. He's on Saiyans. He's on Fusion Warriors and Vegeta Clan. Even though Vegeta Clan is a very big sneak, there's 2 units on Vegeta Clan aside from Vegito who are also in the top 10. Those being Gogeta Blue and Nappa and Vegeta. So it makes Vegeta Clan actually valid. So for that reason, the team options, availability, and also having a good kit, slightly worse than Gohan's, but the team factor really overwhelms. Vegito hits #1 while Gohan hits #2. Next up, we got Golden Frieza at 3 and Ultra UI at 4. I think most people would naturally agree that Golden Frieza is insanely broken. Like, he's just way better than Ultra UI, but that doesn't mean Ultra UI is bad. It's just that him in general, with the simple ease of getting 3 things from his green card. The green card gives him Vanish Restore, cards, and Cover No. That's an insane trio to get from one card, and he punishes you for punishing him. It's just super safe. He's also on one of the best teams in the game, Powerful Opponent, Frieza Force as well, and we can also sneak him on movies. Not even a sneak, he's actually movies. So in terms of value, this guy's up there for his individual status, but he's also on good teams as well. But I'm sure a lot of people would like to argue that Ultra UI could easily be 3rd. Now, if you haven't noticed, it already says 3-4, and the reason it says 3-4 is because I think these guys are interchangeable. So let's get into Ultra UI now. Ultra UI got him at 3-4, potentially 4 or potentially 3, because he fits on a trio team, which is these 3. If you played PvP anytime recently at a decent enough level, so at least BR 65 or higher, I will even lower it to 65, I was going to say 70. These three is insane. It's all Son Family. You got Vegito here, guaranteed rush. You got Ultra Gohan, last stand menace of the game. And you got this guy here who's going to guaranteed lock you in. If you try to cover change, he's going to lock you in and get that ultimate off. He also can dodge to stall, which is in my opinion equivalent to a comeback or a revival, because you can't hit him. So in the same way you'd be stalling if you can get revival to break off a combo, he can jump out of a combo with his strike card. If you strike cards him or blue card him or green card him, you can actually just avoid the combo extending. So for that reason, because he fits with the top 2 in the game, he could easily be 3. But Frieza is not a slacker by any means. So for that reason, Frieza could also just be better. So in terms of individual things, I think for me anyways, I'm going to be taking Golden Frieza. I think Golden Frieza is actually a cheat code. But because of the team status, I could easily take Ultra UI. So I'm going to leave this one up to you. Let me know whether you prefer Golden Frieza or Ultra UI. But I could easily see it either way. And I think it's just open to discussion. Next up, we got a debate that people might not like. We have Gogeta Blue at number 5. And we've got CMZ at 6. Now, over time, when they first released, as in Vegeta and Gogeta, I think in general, people were summoning for Gogeta more simply because he's the more fan favorite. I think he's a lot more popular than Vegito. And of course, these 2 units are not even far off from each other. It's just that the top 5 is so tight. It's so tight that any one of these units could easily overpower anyone once you give them one slight edge. And that's quite insane. We've never really had a meta like this where the top 5 is so like strongly held together. There are some differences, so you have to micromanage where you want to tier list people. But I think Gogeta Blue in general has generally seen a lot more downplay, but valid downplay because of the way his assault chain works. It's not that it's bad, it's just that it's really underwhelming in situations where you don't need it. In a lot of cases, if you're using the strike assault, you won't be drawing cards, so that's the problem with it. But also outside of that, right, it forces you to use multiple strikes, which could make you a lot more predictable. And in general, if you're not doing a lot of damage, forcing strike assaults, you're not going to get somebody killed. So it might be worthwhile to just get combo extension or over the strike assault. And if you're not fighting somebody that's using it, you're kind of putting it to waste. You don't have to use it every card. I do understand that. But at the same time, you can't chain it into a green card. You know, that's a problem in itself. So you could do a green card, grab somebody, lock them in, but then you can't chain it. It's like, oh, brother. It could have just been so much better in general. But cool. I'm not really going to downplay him anymore. I think in general, the good thing about him, he has Vanish Recovery, so he can be a good 1v3 unit. And he does decent damage. And I think more than anything else, out of all these units on this list, besides maybe Golden Frieza because he has 2 lives, he's probably the tankiest in the top 5 right now. He is so tanky, literally. When you're actually hitting him, it's a problem. But yeah, if you have any of these guys like 9 stars at least, I think this is a very agreeable list so far. But let's get into CMZ because I've been talking about Gogeta a lot. So CMZ, his main stock, I'm not even going to go into like details about him in crazy detail. His main stock is just the fact that he's anti-Saiyan. And 3 of the top 5 are anti-Saiyan. UUI and Gogeta Blue both are yellow, so that's a problem. And then we have Vegeta over here. 3 of them being anti-Saiyan, Saiyans, and this guy's anti-Saiyan, that's obviously a natural. Then if you also hit a green card, you go type neutral, so Vegeto's not really dealing with that. It's easy to get a rush in or a lot of damage out, and he gets covered on entry. So overall, it just makes a lot of sense to have CMZ in the top 5. But whether I was going to put him over Gogeta Blue, I don't know. I think Gogeta Blue wins on the team options. He has movies, Saiyans, Sonfam, Vegeta Clan as well, and Fusion Warriors. That's 5 teams, the most out of anybody in the top 5. Zamasu has what? Powerful Opponent, God Key, and God Key is not even that great, but Powerful Opponent is, considering we have Ultra Golden Frieza. So if we're looking at it, really and truly, we still have to respect the fact that he's taking out 2 yellows right now with him being red. If he was any other element, it'd be worse. But like at the same time, we can't just say he's just outright better than Gogeta with the team stock that he has. And in general, his own kit being obviously good. So I'm going to leave this up to debate as well. But for me, I would give Gogeta the slight edge. But it's not far. I could easily use CMZ and it worked the same way, if not better. Alright, we have 7 and 8. We've got the GT boys, Super Baby 2 and Super 17. The powerful opponents, Super Gauge 2. I think he's really just a sleeper gem in this meta. He's a super good yellow that breaks your combo. And if he's not on Saiyans, because you don't want to use UUI or Gogeta, which is unlikely, he can fit there too. But he can also fit on powerful opponents and GT. Just acing the team, both teams by the way. So if we're looking at this, Super Baby 2, I think his role on the team is very solid. He doesn't actually move when you're dealing with him. His gauge breaks you off, basically forcing you to switch out, dropping your combo basically as well. His gauge is too OP. I like to call him Super Gauge 2. It's hard to get past, but he can also destroy you on the offensive end. I believe he locks you in. He spawns a blue card when his gauge fills and he uses the blue card to empty it. Very valuable guy, but on the low-key end. It's very low-key. If you're using powerful opponents, this guy will give you easy wins. You might not see it because obviously he's a lot more defensive for the team, but I think as well because of his support, and he's anti-Saiyan. He's also anti-Saiyan with the meta being what? Look, so we've got 1, 2, 3 above him. That's a big thing in this game, to be honest. Big thing in this game for him to be anti-Saiyan in general at this point in time, but also him being able to solo if you do use him. Then obviously I went on the defensive end as well. So he has support, offensive capabilities, defensive capabilities, and he's going to force damage against the best units in the game. That's enough for me to say he's 7. Now, Super 17, it's not that he's bad. This guy, he's been slightly shuffling down, but if you wanted to, I could easily raise him up, but I'm not going to, and I'm going to explain why. Super 17 is suffering from 2 things in this meta: favoritism and team options. If you want to run this guy, you might run him on powerful opponent. But both of the main 2 units on powerful opponents are very like melee heavy. Even this guy having the green card counter, Golden Freeze, is very melee heavy. Nappa and Vegeta are going to come up later, but they're also kind of more melee heavy. So if we're looking at it, this guy being blast type kind of messes up teams. But then on top of that, favoritism right now forces the most dominant teams to be used because of what units also exist. So it's not that he's bad, because if he lands a green card, it's still probably a guaranteed kill. If he starts his combo going, he's going to be filling his gauge and getting cover no consistently. If he gets a cover change, he gets a free ultimate. You know, if we're looking at it, it's kind of tough. It's kind of tough to put Super 17 in a good position offensively. Not because he's bad, but his team options are bad. So for me anyways, I have to have him 1 below Super Baby 2, but it's not that big of a gap either. Like, everything is so like milliseconds away from each other. It's crazy. The last 2 making it on the list is really these revival units. They're really just like back end stock to make any of your teams tankier or give you a second chance in life. So we got Nappa and Vegeta, and then we got Pikkon as well. I think I said earlier that Nappa and Vegeta are strike based, but they're not. They're range type. But the reason I said that is because you often put them on melee orientated teams. So if they're with Vegeta, Golden Frieza on Frieza Force, sorry, Frieza is the main factor on that team, so he makes it the offensive type of team. You're juicing him, not this unit here. If you're using this guy on what's it called, powerful opponent, Super Baby 2's on that team, and then Golden Frieza again. So, and then the other one is Vegeta Clan. If you're using Gogeta and Vegito, it's still melee based. So they're always surrounded about melee units more than ever, which is why I have the impression that they were melee. So that was wrong, just correcting that. But the revival layer with what teams they can fit on, and I think their element is kind of safe. But yeah, they're pretty much carried up by a lot of teams. I don't think they stand out as much as other units. But the same reason for Pikkon, really, carried up because of the team option. The revival option is just safe. I think when you have a revival on your team, it gives you that second chance at playing, and that keeps a lot of people alive. But for the most part, I wouldn't say these units are like offensively the greatest units in the world. They really just provide value on the back end, because if you're building any team, you're thinking about these top dogs at the top, then these guys are just keeping you alive in case you make a mistake. That's the best way I can explain it, so you shouldn't think too much into it beyond that. Anybody who builds a team at BR70 upwards knows that you need a revival unit in a lot of cases. If you don't have in revival, endurance, or like UI who can dodge, you're going to get punished for it very quickly. Very quickly. We got Bardock and Goku, Goku and Bardock, Bomku and Beast Gohan for the honorable mentions. I think Bardock and Goku fulfill a similar role to Pikkon, but the only reason they didn't make the list this time is because they only have 1 or 2 teams, so Saiyans and Sun Family. And on Saiyans, the revival layer is just a bit better in my opinion. But on Sun Family, you're just not going to run them anyways, because the 3 of death exist if you had the choice to run them: Vegito, Gohan, and UUI. You could also run Gogeta Blue as well, so you just don't need this unit on Sun Fam. For similar reasons, you don't need Bomku. I'd say he has a lot of stock on GT, unless you have him super high stars, and that's a very situational thing which most people don't have. Then in that case he would cook, but otherwise I think he quite gets depleted fast. His health, his gauge is pretty decent though, and especially if he's like the enemy's last stand, the main ability is OP. And then Beast for same reasons as well. You're running him on hybrid Saiyans. You can run him on movies, but he's not a main round pick. The revival is very much more important, and your main attackers on movies are going to be Gogeta and Golden Frieza. On hybrid Saiyans, your main attackers are going to be Ultra Gohan, but then usually run Pan for support, so he fits on that team. But like I said, it's worse, slightly worse. And then what's the other team? Sun Family. We got the Trio of Death and Gogeta Blue's also there. So that just handles that already. And then at the bottom, we just got the fan service tier. It's just units that are glazed. There's no real explanation for them. And the units aren't necessarily bad. They're actually pretty good if we're being real. But every other unit above them is just better. So it's a pretty much like a forced thing if you wanted to talk about these units. They're not spotlight characters anymore. I guess out of all of these, probably Ultra Vegeta or Blue somebody would be willing to die for him. But every other unit above is pretty much just better, if we're being honest. But yeah, man, this was kind of just a quick tier list because I was requested to do so. So let me know what you guys think about the tier list. Not too much from me, to be honest, but hey, I think it's a good tier list nonetheless. I gave pretty much valid reasons. Some things I could easily swap around. It's not going to be that big of a deal, but I think the biggest debate will be within the top 5. But once you reach the top 5, I think it's really understandable why everybody's in a certain position. But press the subscribe button, man. We're on this grind to 100,000 subscribers. I appreciate you guys for watching, man. My name's Zakashi, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one, man.